where time meets style.
Thank you for joining, man. Thank you for joining. I was just doing like a quick intro. This is episode 1 of Time Meets Style, the TimelySoles podcast. So congrats for popping the cherry here.
You are nuts having someone like me on as your first guest. But roll the dice, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I knew exactly what I was getting into because I've known you for 15 years. I've known you for 15 years. You can believe that. Back to Forrester Research. We're obviously both sales guys, but really why I wanted to invite you into episode 1 here is I've always known you as a man of style, right?
Thank you.
And that's a compliment.
Thank you.
You know, most guys like don't really give a shit about how they dress or how they look, but that's something that, you know, I've noticed about you. You're obviously also a great sales guy.
Thank you.
You've been in the game for so long. We've been in it together, grinding. But most importantly, you speak the truth and you're unafraid, right? So what better guy to bring in for episode 1? And thanks again for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. All right. So obviously we're going to start with Time Meets Style, right? We're going to start with some fashion. And, you know, I mentioned in the intro here that you're a man of style. Talk to the audience a little bit about where you get your sense of style from.
Well, so I used to dress like shit, right? It was like your usual t-shirt, jeans, and whatever I could find, like a Fossil watch type of thing, just throw it on. But then once I started getting to the professional world, it's like, all right, that shit's not going to fly. It's not going to cut it. So I was like, all right, you know, what can I get, you know, for like my $100, right? So I was like, kind of like trying to piecing it from there. And so I started making money, right? I mean, I forgot which movie it was, but Boiler Room, act as if, right?
Right.
So if you want a certain part, you got to dress a certain part.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Bingo, right? I see a lot of people not doing that nowadays, right? They're just wearing whatever they want to work, and that kind of...
Especially with work from home, man. Look, I'm wearing sweats right now. I'll be honest, I'm wearing sweats.
Yep. You know, I'm not wearing pants, right? Same thing.
I knew it.
But no, it started back, I would say probably in like after my formative years when I started working and I saw how people dress, how they carry themselves in the corporate world and how successful they were. So, you know, I was just, you know, piecing pieces as I was moving through my sales career and when I quote unquote made it, right? Whatever that meant, right? I started filling out my wardrobe, you know, with bespoke clothing, like, you know, Tom James clothing. Never heard of it, but, you know, I'm not a big statured guy. I'm a small guy, so I can't get stuff off the rack. I have to get stuff bespoke, right? Or I shop at Baby Gap, but they don't have my shit.
Gap Kids, yeah, exactly.
You're such an asshole. Kids. I hope you get diarrhea tonight. So you know, I just started piecing pieces together and kind of just matching colors together. And you know what actually kind of draw my inspiration from as well? I don't know if you remember back in the day, maybe in the 2000s, where they kind of have the monochrome type of suits. It's like, hey, if you're wearing a gray suit, trying to have like a silver shirt with a white, it was just like the whole, what was it? The whole Boiler Room type of approach, right? That kind of caught my eye. So it's kind of like, all right, so, you know, again, going back, like, I just want to dress the part that I want, but I have to dress in a certain way that, you know, I'm trying to stay away from the navy blue suits, the gray suits, the white shirts, the blue shirts.
The Brooks Brothers boring, right?
Dude, you see all those guys, they don't stand out.
Look, Brooks Brothers went bankrupt for a reason.
Yeah, right? I mean, look, they're good for the old whites, but the old whites are dying off. You might want to, you might want to get that off your, you might want to edit that one out. But, you know, but no, it's a generational thing, right? You know, Brooks Brothers is geared more towards like the older crowd. I think they're trying to market towards a younger crowd a little bit, but it's not
working with me. So tell me about, so you talk a little bit about the fashion, the business attire, the suits. What about shoes? What about watches? Like, how does that mix into your style?
So shoes was one of those things that you never really pay attention to until you really pay attention to it, right? You know, people would wear like black slacks with brown shoes. It's like, doesn't really work per se, but you know, what else would work with that, right? So a lot of this it's stemmed from my insecurities, right? How can I dress a certain way when I don't have the money to do it, right? So before it's just, I'll get shoes from, I don't know, less than $100. I don't even know what kind of shoes they are. But now, you can move on to like Magnani's, right? You can move on to Wolf and Shepherds. You can move on to some other ones that aren't. It's like you could tell which shoes aren't well made, and they shouldn't be paired with certain types of suits per se, because it could cheapen the suit, right? If you wear shitty shoes and you wear a really good suit, people could tell.
But if the shoes are shitty and they make you look taller, you're cool with that, right?
Dude, I have worn high heels.
Talk about your insecurities. So,
It's my insecurities, bro. I'm not a tall dude, so I could wear things with like a 3-inch heel in it, right?
You would, 3-inch heel. I think I've seen you in heels before, right?
During Halloween in a wig.
Halloween one year.
But that's for another podcast. It's not for this one.
Exactly.
And then for timepieces, I've always been interested in timepieces because of my dad. My dad's always collected mostly like Seiko dive watches from what I could remember. And then I remember my first watch being a blue Casio. It was like a blue rubber one. It just tells the time and the date. That was I think when I was like 3 or 4. And then from then on, because my dad is he's a stickler when it comes to stuff like that. He's like, hey, keep your watch safe, keep your cross pen safe. Like he's just one of those guys, right? From then on, I've just been paying attention to timepieces or watches, but I could never really afford it per se, right? I mean, shit, I thought a fucking Fossil watch, with quote unquote complications were great, right? I thought Kenneth Cole, that was $150, was great, right?
Right.
But I never really thought about Rolexes or like the Omegas or any of that, because I just never thought I could afford it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's kind of price prohibitive before. But then once I started making money, and then once I started going to these, the business meetings, you kind of see that there's a certain common theme with successful people is their timepieces. When I shake people's hands, I look to see what they have on their wrist. It kind of tells me, hey, are you successful? Do you take care of your appearances, right?
Right.
And do you know your timepieces, right? I see a lot of people wearing Rolexes. Don't get me wrong. I see a lot of people wearing the crown just for the sake because it's a crown, right?
Right.
But they don't know anything about it. And I'll get flamed for saying this, but I think those guys are like the same as Maserati drivers, right? They're buying it because it's a Maserati, but they don't know anything about it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I just kind of took an interest in watches. I got my first real piece, my fake real piece, I should say, was a Tag Heuer automatic, the Tiger Woods one. Yeah,
okay.
That was my first fake one. And
so it's fake. What do you mean? Like you bought it on Canal Street in New York City or something?
I forgot where I got it, but I got it for like fucking $200, right? Because it was kind of heavy. I couldn't afford it. I wanted to see what it feels like to have a luxury, quote unquote, luxury watch.
Okay.
And and I kind of caught the bug from there.
Right. Yeah. Well, you talk a lot about like fashion in the context of business, and that's something that I talk about a lot as well in TimelySoles, right?
Yeah.
When you think about preparing for a business trip, and obviously we've been in sales for our entire careers, and it's all about like how do you stand out, how do you differentiate, how can you become memorable and stand out from the crowd, right? It's a lot about your preparation, it's a lot about your messaging. But I also think it is a lot, obviously, about your self-confidence. And I think about like what you're wearing helps to drive your self-confidence. And it also becomes like an icebreaker as well, right? Like how many business trips have you been on or business meetings you've been on where you notice someone's wearing a nice watch or someone notices you're wearing a nice watch, and it instantly becomes like an icebreaker and something you can talk about with that prospect or customer after the meeting that's not even business, and it just creates stronger rapport, right?
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of clients that I've went on sales calls with that ended up talking about watches, and we end up, we're still quote unquote friends, right? They're they're business partners, but we consider ourselves friends now. just because of that common interest that we share. There's not a lot of folks like us out there per se, right? That I know of. You're probably the first guy within my group, within our group, that actually likes.
It's over 6 feet tall.
That's everybody, dude.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm like the shortest one out of all of us, dude.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, you're the only one that I know of who's into horology. I thought I was the only one in it. That's why I kind of like just kept it quiet, because I wanted to be that fucking nerd, that watch nerd. But now that I found out you're a watch nerd, it's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, right? So like, do you feel like being a watch nerd is something that you typically would be reserved about, and unless you see somebody else geeking out on a watch, like you'll kind of keep it to yourself?
Yeah, look, man, it's, to be completely candid, dude, like the watch nerds, like the real horologists, those are the type of guys I want to hang out with, right?
Yeah. Hey, man, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Right?
Yeah.
I enjoy hanging around with enthusiasts like you, right? Like we could talk about it, we could geek about it, but we're not gonna get so esoteric about it, that we're just gonna get into the weeds about certain grinds, certain movements, certain gears. Like that's not where my interest is per se, right?
Right.
So yeah, I do keep it quiet unless I know somebody's into watches as well, right?
Right. Yep.
But again, I don't want to sound like a snob, right? But if you're coming to me talking about watches like a Modi, right, or some obscure other brand, is like I may not know it, right? I may not know it because it's but I would like to learn about it. But it's not something that I like the usual Omega, Rolex, Patek, that crowd, right? That type of watches.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. So what about sneakers, right? So I know you've got your fair share of Jordans. I know you're into that. Talk to me about your collection of kind of more the athletic sneakers, and how do you think about that in terms of your like professional attire?
Yeah, so with shoes, with Jordans, mostly Jordans. It started out with back in sixth and seventh grade, back in the 80s or 80s or so, when the first Jordans came out, right?
Yep.
Thought they were awesome, right? The black and whites.
Yeah,
not the black and reds, I'm sorry, the black and reds. And I could never afford it back then, right? My family just couldn't afford it, right? I didn't wear Nikes, through my formative years in school because we could never afford it. So I just wore whatever, right? Some JC Penney brand. But now that when I'm more established and, I see the whole array of, Jordans out there with different colorways, right? More than I could imagine, now that I could afford some. It's like, all right, let's pick a few up, right? But then it gets addictive. You pick up one.
Dude, look behind me, man.
That's what I'm saying, right? And pretty soon you start looking at Dunk Lows. You start looking at ones, right? And then you start looking at limited, right? And then you get down to a rabbit hole.
Oh, huge.
Dude, it's so bad.
That's the theme in common with watches and sneakers, man. Both super addictive. And they're just affordable enough that you can just keep buying them.
It's dangerous, right? Because every time you look at it, it's like, all right, at least for a timepiece, right? You're looking at 15, 20 grand, right? And that's kind of like, I'll buy a few of those a year. But if you look at shoes, it's only a few $100, right? So you kind of justify it by, this pair is $300, right? It's only a fraction of what an AP would cost. So therefore, I'll buy 3 pairs, right? And next thing you know, you buy 6 pairs, 9 pairs, 12 pairs, right?
Right.
And that's
absolutely.
But then once you start buying the shoes, then you start buying the clothes to match the shoes that you bought. Exactly.
And the big difference though is like you spend that 15 to 20K on a watch, and if you buy the right watch, you buy it right, you're parking your money there, right? It's basically an investment. The sneakers, you buy a sneaker, that thing depreciates as soon as you untie it. Right? But it doesn't depreciate. It's not going to make you go broke. So you can buy them, and
the risk is manageable.
Be a big deal, right? Yeah.
Totally. It's a manageable risk, and it's fun too, right? Like if you you could buy some colorways, which is $120. You're not going to feel that bad, right?
Right.
But if you buy a shitty, shitty Rolex, you spend 10, 12K on that hurts. You could feel that,
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Hey, we're going to come back to fashion in a little bit, but I want to step away and talk a little bit more about you and your background. And I wanted to just have you tell us a little bit about like where you grew up and how'd you end up in Boston exactly?
All right. So my formative years were in California. That's where my education was, in the Bay Area. I met the wife in college. And
where was college?
What's that?
Where was college?
Berkeley, Katt.
Berkeley.
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of the coastal elites, huh?
We will. Yeah, I think we'll talk about that in a little bit about what that actually means. But yeah, I met her. We did in college, and then she graduated. She graduated before I did. She's a year older than I am. And then in the 2000s, early 2000s.
So you like older women?
Yeah, Well, fuck. Considering I look like I'm a fucking 12-year-old, they're all fucking look older than me. But yeah, I mean, I followed her out to Boston back in 2001.
Okay, you followed her out. Okay, got it. Cool.
Well, let me withdraw and rephrase. Okay. She moved out in June or July, 2001. Okay. I didn't fucking move out.
Okay.
I was hoping her ass would just be like, fuck Boston, I'm coming back.
Oh, okay. But you guys agreed to a long-term relationship.
I was hoping she would just say, fuck it, and just fucking come back. Right. But then in October, she's like, yeah, get your fucking ass out here. So I was like, okay, all right, I guess I gotta call a moving truck. I gotta get the dog. I gotta throw everything in the car and just fucking go. So
right. And
so
you drove across country, huh?
It was really a great drive, to be honest with you, across country.
Jeez, man, that's
once
a long
you
drive.
get 16. I drove 16 hours a day. Took me 4.5 days to get cross country, but to be honest with you, I really enjoyed the drive because the coasts are the only thing that resembles what we're used to from a metropolitan perspective. The rest of the country looks nothing like that, which is refreshing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I make sure to stop in the diners, small places to like have meals, try to talk to the locals and see what's like out there. Just trying to learn, right? Because I've been on the coast, pretty much my whole life before that. I was in the service, and I lived in the South when I was in the service, and I kind of liked the folks in the South when I was in the service. I was in Fort Bragg. That's where I was stationed.
Where's Fort Bragg? Is that
North Carolina? Yeah,
North Carolina. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was with an airborne unit out there. Did my training down in Georgia as well. So stayed in the South, right? And I really enjoyed the way, Southern hospitality is real, but it's also Southern culture as well.
Yeah, totally. And so did you serve before your time at Berkeley?
I did. I went to Berkeley because due to my GI Bill.
Oh, through the GI Bill. Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. So and did you serve in the Army?
I was at the 82nd Airborne.
82nd Airborne, right? Yep. Okay. So does that mean like you're jumping out of airplanes or stuff?
Yeah.
Sorry, my ignorance here.
Yeah. Jump out of airplanes, and then the goal of it is 82nd is supposed to be ready in 18 hours of all conflict. So we're kind of like they used to be kind of like the reaction force back then. I don't know how they are now. It's been a while.
Right. And so 18 hours, basically that means you get the call, and within 18 hours, anywhere in the world, like you're
Deployed.
dropping in and going.
Deployed, yeah.
Nice. Love it. So you got kids, right?
Yeah, those little fucking
how many do you know that you have?
The one that I'm claiming on my taxes would be 8. I'm claiming
8.
I have 2 kids.
That's a good write-off.
Yeah, right. I don't pay taxes anymore. Just have kids. Yeah, I got 2 kids, man, a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl. That's awesome. And how old are they now?
Xander is 13. He just turned 13. Isabel, holy shit, Isabel will be 12 in a few weeks, actually.
It's wild, dude. It's wild.
Right?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So typically kids follow in their parents' footsteps to some degree. So, two questions for you. Like, would you want your kids to go to Berkeley, and would you want your kids to serve in the service?
Ha! That is a really that's a really good question. My answer to both would be no. But if you're putting a gun to my head or dick in my mouth, I would probably have to choose.
Don't threaten me there.
I'm throwing you the good time, buddy. You know what? Here's why I say no to both, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna get flamed for this, but education to me, while it's important for society and for you to get a job, I don't really care where you go to school, to be honest with you. I don't really care. I honestly don't want, I mean, I'm a California guy, right? I actually don't want my kids to be out in California, to be honest with you. Just from my belief perspective and from how I've raised my kids, right? It's I don't want to say, you know, I'm traditional, right? I'm traditional in how I raise my kids and stuff. So the military isn't what it used to be anymore, right? I don't see them as a fighting force anymore. I see them as more of a more inclusive type of, we need a group of people together to get our numbers up, right? Am I confident that if these guys deploy that our country is going to be safe? No, fuck no, right? We can't even figure out what fucking bathroom we want to go to.
Jeez, right? That's scary.
No, that's a problem we're having with recruitment right now. We can't recruit for the military. Our numbers are down.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer is neither, to be honest with you. I don't want them to go in the Army. I don't want them to go to Cal.
Right. And so you talk about, you know, college, and do you think college is like a good idea in every circumstance, or do you see like exceptions where it may not make sense at all?
To be honest, I used to think that fucking college is the end all be all, right? Especially where you go to school, the name of the institution that you go to.
Right.
But then I realized at my work, I go to school with folks that went to Ivies, like Columbia's, right? We're sitting in the same fucking chair. It doesn't matter where you went to school, right? There's a guy next to me who went to like some kind of state school, right? We're all in the same position. So does it really matter? I don't think it matters.
Right.
However, I think there are certain fields that are important, right? Like if you're in healthcare, you know, I think that's important. Education, I think that's important. I think business as well, from an academic perspective. But everything else to me is just, for college, is pretty much for you to find yourself, right? It's find out who you are as a person. How are you going to grow up not having, you know, your family around you the whole time, right? How are you going to find yourself? The academic to me is just more of secondary, right? It's something that you have to do. But the value is really learning how to be yourself, how to grow up, how to take care of yourself in college, right? I was talking to my kids about this the other day. It's like, you know, it seems to me college as of late is more about testing and memorizing as opposed to learning, right? They put such an emphasis on testing. All you're doing is just having people memorize. That's why we're seeing kids nowadays, and this is just my perspective, not everybody else. Kids lack critical thinking nowadays. It's because they fucking learn everything by reading a fucking book. And they memorize everything they fucking tell you. They regurgitate what they tell you. They can't think. They can't solve problems because they were never encouraged to solve problems, because all they're told is go look it up on the internet. And to them, that's their answer to everything. It's the internet, right?
Now it's gonna be like, hey, ChatGPT, hook me up with the answer.
Yeah, you know, we're encouraging the masses to be lazy. Is what we're doing. We want to automate everything. You know, every technology that comes out is making our lives easier per se, right? But it's also making us more obsolete by doing that. Where was I going with this? I'm sorry, dude.
No, I agree. No, just like the whole college thing and the value of that. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. When I was growing up, like my dad would, like I'd be walking with my dad doing whatever.
Yeah.
And he'd talk to me about the importance of college.
Yeah.
How to prepare to make sure you get into the right college. And that, you know, his like commitment to me was like wherever I wanted to go, he would be supportive.
Yep.
And that was, and I think that was just like one of the most incredible gifts that my dad and my family gave me was that opportunity, because
Yeah.
at the time it was the right thing. This was like 2000, 2004. Now, I think that college has generally gotten out of control. Just for so many reasons. I think, look at what's happened with Harvard and Penn, presidents resigning, just the culture wars on the campuses. That's just disgusting.
Yep.
You've got, but I think what's even more disgusting potentially is just the rising cost of college.
Right.
And I don't necessarily blame the universities for this, but I blame the government for it by making by basically giving free money away for anybody to go to college wherever they want, and the university take advantage of that, and they just inflate their tuition, and so like the value of a degree has been diminished like tremendously, even in like 20 years since I was in college. Most degrees that you come out with, how do you expect to pay any of that money back? Like, you just can't.
Especially with a history or an art degree, right? Like one of those useless, obscure. It's like, first of all,
it is. It's completely worthless. So,
well, then I go back to personal responsibility, right? Personal accountability, right? Now, there should be no surprise as to how much college is nowadays, because we bitch about it. Everybody bitches about how out of whack, but people are still fucking going. They're still fucking signing up for loans, and they're still fucking complaining about it, and they're still taking obscure fucking classes. They graduate with a useless degree, right? And then they complain about it, right? That's where it pisses me off. Like, there's definitely enough blame to go around, right? But I think people need to keep in mind that we are a capitalistic society. Everything is about business here. You know, even schools, jails, everything that's supposed to be, right? Everything's a business. So I wish people would stop looking at it from like an altruistic perspective. And it's like it's just follow the money, people.
Right. Absolutely. Man, I think you and I are on the same page on college for sure. Last thing, just with respect to your background and like your kids in particular.
Yeah.
I'm a dad as well. I got 2 kids, 2 daughters, and I think about this a lot. But like, what's the 1 or 2 key lessons that you're really just trying to teach your kids right now?
Yeah, first thing is, honestly, don't be a shitbag. I've told them, right? Is, I don't care what you do for a living. I really don't, right? You could pick up garbage. I don't give a shit. But don't ever fuck anybody over for self-enrichment. That's the first thing, right? Always, look in the mirror, like be able to look at yourself in the mirror every night, making sure that at least in a professional world in a professional world, is like, make sure you give it your all at work, right? Don't fucking have some pride, right? It's more about self-worth over net worth at this point, right? So take pride in everything you do, because it will catch up to you. And third, most importantly, is help the unfortunate. Help yourself first. Make sure you can take care of yourself and your family, but then make sure to leave room for the unfortunate. Yeah.
No, I love it, man. I mean, everything you shared there is, values-based, principles-based.
Here's the thing, though, E. I wasn't always like this, though. Remember, I was a fucking punk. Right? Everybody wanted to cancel me back, even back in the day before canceling was popular, right?
Yeah, but once they invented canceling because of you.
I'm still standing, motherfucker.
Right. Exactly.
No, but like once you have kids and you kind of see how fucked up this world is, right? How we fucking treat everybody. It's like, I don't want to be part of this fucking mess. I don't want my kids to be part of this fucking mess.
Right. Yeah. Teach the values and the principles to your kids so they can be a light in a very dark world.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, accountability. There's nothing wrong with saying you fucked up, fix a problem, fucking move on. Right.
Yeah. I think that's one of the best things about a career in sales is you learn accountability quickly, or you're not going to be in it.
Well, there's no ambiguity, right? You either hit your number or you don't hit your number.
Exactly. All right, man, let's transition into our next section. This is what I call our culturally relevant section. So this is just to, see how well you're keeping up with today's culture in the United States and the world, in your reaction to some of the most notable things happening culturally in this country.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one is I know you and I talked a little bit about this one last week when we were getting ready for this pod, but so Katt Williams broke the internet. It's been almost a week, and it's like crazy. I think that interview at Club Shay Shay, it's like up to 50 million or something.
Is it?
It's absolutely
That's insane.
It's amazing, right? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves that many views.
Yeah.
So obviously you and I both watched that. What was like your big takeaway? What was something funny or something provocative or something profound that you took away from it?
I took, like, it wasn't just one or two pieces, It's pretty much the whole thing of how consistent Katt Williams was in how he answered questions, right? He gave no fuck. He speak to his truth, right? Now, people can say that, hey, he shouldn't on others to kind of prop himself up, but I didn't hear him propping himself up in that interview per se. Like, he'll put himself in there here and there, but it wasn't like I'm better than X, Y, and Z per se, right? But yeah, the whole interview really captured my attention. I would say I'm not surprised at what he says, right? But I'm not surprised, but I was surprised to see some names up there, right? Like Kevin Hart, right? One of the biggest names out there, right? You see guys like, which I agree with, the Rogan guys, right? The guys that Rogan try to push. I don't find them funny at all. I try to watch their specials. I can't finish watching them. They're horrible. Right?
Yeah, so, I've never watched any of the guys Rogan's pushed.
Oh God, I try to watch Schultz. I try to watch Burt. Like I try to watch those guys, and it's just I don't get it. Like it's not funny. Whereas I could watch Anthony Jeselnik all day, right? He's funny. I could watch Bill Burr all day, right? But the Rogan 6, I thought it was just me that I didn't get comedy, that I didn't get it. But hearing Katt Williams say, "Hey, they're not fucking funny," it's like, all right, I guess I'm not the fucking retard here.
Right. Yeah, man, I agree. Like I think it was just an amazing interview because there was so much truth spoken. And
you know what I hate though, about this?
What's that?
From Shay Shay. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if he was saying it on that pod or he was saying it on his pod with Ocho. Yep. That he says he is a conversationalist. He's not an interviewer, right? But my issue with that is he interviews. He doesn't have a conversation, right? Because he has a certain set of questions that he wants to go through, which is fine, right? I would rather see that more on a more conversational approach than, because there's no continuity in the way that he asks questions per se. Right? Like he's going to ask this question, he gets his answer, he'll laugh, and then he'll jump into another question, as opposed to just having a conversation about it. So, that's more on the Shay Shay side, right? Not on the Katt Williams side,
right?
But that's like my only critique on that one.
Yeah, I've only watched one of his interviews.
Yeah,
so I can't really like speak
he's awesome
to it, but look, I mean, I think he asked the right questions, whether it was a conversationalist or not. I don't know, but I love the interview, and I'll tell you, like, one of the things that you obviously mentioned, like the big headlines and stuff, but there were some smaller things that Katt mentioned in the interview, and one of the things that like really caught my attention was they were talking about smoking weed, right?
Yeah,
and I think Shannon Sharp asked Katt, like, hey, have you ever smoked with Snoop?
Yeah.
And Katt's like, well, no shit, of course I smoked with Snoop. But like what really caught my attention was there was like some dialogue around that, and Katt was like, it's like well known that I smoke way more weed than Snoop. Like Snoop doesn't smoke anywhere the amount of weed that I do. And then he said something that my jaw dropped. He was like, I smoke 20 blunts a day. Yeah. 20 blunts a day. And then it was hilarious because he doesn't roll them. He has a full-time roller.
Yeah.
And it's a woman. He only has women rolling up his blunts.
He's inclusive, bro.
Yeah. He was like, I don't want, that's a lot of blunts. I don't want men's spit. I don't want to be smoking men's spit. I thought that was one of the most like profound things from the whole interview that's not getting enough attention, is that Katt Williams smokes snoop
blunts.
under the table.
Yeah, but the fact that he is saying that he smokes 20 blunts, I mean, that's a lot. I'm surprised his eyes are smaller than mine, dude. Can you imagine that? He smokes 20 blunts, you're like, no.
I was doing the math. I was like, wait, all right, there's 24 hours in a day. Okay. 20 blunts a day. Like, how much does he sleep? He says that he smokes weed so he can sleep. So we're talking probably 2 an hour while he's awake, which is like, I don't know, man. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. All right. Hey, next question in the culturally relevant section. Is artificial intelligence, JLAM, is this going to help us or is it going to hurt us?
Oh, you've watched Terminator 2, right?
All right. Is that your answer?
Yeah, I firmly believe that it will. It's going to fuck us at some point. I'm just glad I'm going to be dead when it happens. I'm not kidding, dude. Like, I'm looking at my timeline where I'm at in my career, like where everything is. It's like, all right, by the time fucking Skynet takes over, I'm fucking dead. I don't care.
Does Terminator 2 have a timeline in it? Was there a year that movie took place?
Yeah, I think it was like fucking 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, right. So we're fucking way past that, dude.
Yeah.
But no, I was just thinking about that because I'm in research, right? I mean, I sell the research. So AI is a huge fucking component of research and tech, right? So we kind of look at it, and the more they learn, the more machine learn, the more they know how to counteract certain things. It's just how it is, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. Look, I think the broad consensus is that it's going to hurt us, right? And I think that's like the major narrative from Hollywood in particular. We had a lot of experts, from Elon Musk and so forth. Actually, I rewatched the original Matrix movie a few weeks ago, and it had been a long time since I watched it. And obviously, like the AI revolution that's happening now, I was a little bit more like tuned into the whole Matrix concept. But what I remember from the movie was that like humankind created AI. They were super proud of the invention. They celebrated themselves. And then the AI took over. And the whole Matrix started because they nuked everything in the entire world.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the more I listened, I was like, shit, this can happen. This totally can happen. Because like another thing in the Katt Williams interview where that, Shannon Sharp was like, hey, Mark Zuckerberg just built like this gigantic bunker. What does he know that we don't?
I was like $230 million for a bunker.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows something.
Crazy. And Katt gave like the simplest answer. And you're like, dude, he's so right. He just goes, well, what Mark knows is that there's a lot of really stupid fucking people that are in charge of our nuclear arsenal.
Yep.
And that's all he has to know.
Yeah.
A lot of stupid people. And the people in charge of that arsenal today are much dumber than they were 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah. Agreed.
I was like, dude, you're right.
Yeah. I mean,
you're 100% right.
All you got to do is look at, who, quote unquote, is supposed to help and protect us, right? And it's supposed to be your government.
Right.
The government who can't even deliver your mail, right? Right? The government can't even deliver your mail, right? You're going to expect them to fucking save you. Good fucking luck, bud.
Right. Exactly. All right. Hey, next question here, man. So let's talk a little bit about politics. So how did we get into this situation in our country? How did we get here, man?
It's easy to blame politicians, to be honest with you. I mean, because that's the common denominator. But I think a lot of it is just fucking people, to be honest with you. Sure. And you've known me a long time, and I've been the same. I fucking hate people, right? I've always been fucking
you've always hated people.
Yeah, and because I just think people are taking sides as opposed to really having conversation, right? We are going to disagree on many things, but believe it or not, the majority of us Americans actually share the same interests. It's just those one or two issues right, that we disagree with, but it's the loud minority that kind of gets the fucking noise, right? The fucking the petulant kids, right? The fucking blue hair that's always screaming and yelling. And the fucking problem with that is it's not just them doing it, it's the way how companies and how do we react to it, right? If we keep apologizing, they're going to be more empowered. And that's what companies, they keep apologizing because that's the easiest thing to do, right? You apologize, you kind of, you know, have a mea culpa. Hopefully things go well, right? But that's not really having a conversation about things, right? I encourage people to have dialogue, not prove the other party right or wrong. That's not the point, right? Because a lot of times we go into these discussions having a point that we want, that's already formulated, that we want the other side to fucking buy into, right? Don't approach it that way. It's like, why do you think a certain way? Why do you think this way? Right? I'm not here to change your mind, but I want to see why you think the way that you think, because that's important to me too, because I want to learn. But that doesn't happen. You know, it's, you know, you bring something up, just something as simple as say a vaccine, right? It's either like you're anti-vax or you're vax. Like there's no in between discussions as to why the vax may not work for certain people, right? They're alternate, you know. So I think the problem is that we like to hear ourselves fucking talk. We like to hear ourselves being fucking right, and we like our side to win. The Democrats or Republican. I don't fucking subscribe to either side. I think they're both fucking retards, to be honest with you. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help having just two parties, right? If we're really Americans, right, we should do what's best for America, and not what's best for your party. Too tribal. It's too fucking tribal.
Dude, JLAM is spitting facts, absolute facts. It is. It's all about, like, I live on the fringe. My way's the only way. I don't want to hear any other way. And if you don't believe my way, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're an asshole. You're going to be uninvited from Thanksgiving dinner, right?
But it's easy to do that though, E, because once you start labeling certain things, you don't have to have a discussion about it. You call someone a racist, that's it. They are a racist. You don't need to discuss it, right? It's a very lazy approach to having a discussion by labeling certain things. You're a racist. Once you call someone a racist, the discussion stops. Once you call someone a bigot, discussion stops. So you don't have to explore it anymore. Because honestly, if you really explore it, E, it lacks a lot of logic. Like, I'm a simple guy. That's why I'm in sales, right? I like everything simplified. So just talk me through the logic, right? How these things work. But once they get to a point to where you can't get into logic, that's when they fucking start shutting down. Both sides. Not one side of the you're fucking like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a great answer from a great sales guy, man, that just, you know, like for a living, you bring curiosity and you try to challenge conventional thinking, because that's how you win, right? That's how you motivate. That's how you change opinions. And, you know, sometimes you don't change opinions, but that curiosity is what you got to bring. And I think that curiosity in general, as you mentioned, is just it's missing from the country, and people are.
I'll give you an example, right? Just from a journalist perspective, right? Your job is to ask questions. It's to discover certain things, right? Back when they asked Aaron Rodgers, right, if he was vaccinated, right, he said he was inoculated. Me being a sales guy, my next question would have been, what does that mean? You're inoculated. What does that mean? There was no follow-up question from the media. Right. And they just took it as they took it as he said he got vaccinated. That was not what he said. He said he was inoculated. And it's true. He was inoculated. Right. He was. Right. But they didn't follow up. They didn't ask a follow-up question. It's like, what does that mean?
Right.
That would have solved a lot of fucking problems. But because we're so fucking lazy nowadays that we don't want to dig into fucking questions.
Do you still think the American dream is possible?
Yeah, absolutely. If you fucking work your ass off, to be honest with you.
Right. So why do so many people say it's not?
Because it's easier to fucking blame somebody else, dude. I mean, look, we came, me, you, Clarky, JJ, the boys, right?
Our buddies,
our friends,
sales buddies.
Circle. Like, we all came from humble beginnings, right? We all did. We worked our way up, right? And you know, you could say the whole white privilege bullshit, right? But I'm not fucking white, right? I fucking worked my ass off.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't complain. You know, the thing is just having a goal and knowing what your goal is and focusing on that goal. It's always easier to blame other people for things not being done. It's because then you don't have to do anything, right? Well, it's somebody else's fault. I don't fucking do a fucking thing. Just let it fail. Whereas I was never brought up that way. It's like, you know, fuck excuses. Everybody has them. You know your job, fucking get it done. You know,
Totally.
If I could, you know, I'm looking around at the house and everything else that I've accomplished. You know, yes, you know, if someone like me could fucking do it, and everybody else could fucking do it if you just fucking put your effort in. I left the service with $200 in my pocket and a bag of clothes. Right? That's all I had when I left my service. And all the stuff I have now, it's because it's earned. It wasn't given to me.
Right. Absolutely. Look, I agree with you that like the American dream is alive and well. The reason why it may not seem that way, though, is because to many people, what the American dream looks like is hard work.
Yeah.
And
God forbid.
And so they're not having it. They're like, that looks a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
I think I'll just kind of work over here and be pissed that I can't ultimately accomplish my dreams because at the end of the day, like you said to yourself with your kids and the way that you're raising them, you want to be able to look themselves in the mirror and take pride and have honesty around what they're doing. And a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't do it.
It takes effort. It just seems like more and more people are just getting lazier and lazier. Or, you know, to be fair, maybe not lazy, but they don't know how to do it, right? Because they were never taught to. Because kids, the younger generation has been brought up to be coddled their whole life about how great they were. And they believe that shit, right? So they don't need to learn how to do anything. But now that they're on their own, they fucking have to learn how to do shit. And they realize it's fucking hard that mom and dad's not here to fucking back you. You know, well then let's look for another fucking excuse as to why I'm not being successful. When you should be looking for ways to be successful. Have a vision. Is what I would say. Have a vision of what you want. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And go get it. You got to go get it,
dude. I mean, look, you don't want to be like, oh shit, I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have done that. You know, fucking exhaust your options. Fuck, I wish I could fucking be 6 feet tall, right? But unless I wear fucking high heels, that's not going to fucking happen. But fucking at least try it.
Right. Yes, something that a quote that I saw, I have no idea who said it, but something that I think about quite a bit is I try to picture myself 1 year from today. And if I'm in that position 1 year from today, do I have any regrets for what I didn't do in the present moment to get me to where I intend to be in a year? And, you know, that keeps me properly motivated and always thinking, like, how do I make sure I get myself into that position 1 year from now that I envision myself?
You know what helps at least for me, keeping that drive is not, I don't want to be poor again. That's kind of my drive, right? I've been poor. I know what it's like to be poor. You know, I know it's like to look for change in between your couches to find gas money, right? I've been there and it sucks. So, you know, I never, you know, the way that I think is like I'm 1 or 2 bad years away to going back to there. And I don't want that.
It's a strong sense of purpose, buddy. All right, man. Hey, let's circle back to Time Meets Style. So a few questions to round out the pod here. So what are the tips that you've got for the audience here when it comes to business style? You talked a lot about business style this earlier. What are 2-3 tips you have?
Dress professional, like dress respectfully, first and foremost, right? Dress respectfully to the event. Stand out though. Don't be afraid to stand out. Take a risk, right? Like and then the third thing I would probably say, accessorize appropriately. I went to a conference, a capital markets conference back in, I think it was November down in DC. People are, dressed up in suits and stuff, right? Power suits and stuff, but you see a few guys like me wearing a pair of J's, right? Or some Dunk Lows to these things, because it gets people talking, right? And like you said, it's a conversation starter for timepieces as well, right? You pull up in a pair of J's, someone else is wearing J's, or someone else is wearing, a pair of Converse, there's a conversation right there, right? And because that's the point of these type of events that I go to, right? It's network, right? And what can I do to stand out? Let me pair this with a pair of, Dunks. Let me pair this with a pair of Fours, right? But it gets people talking.
Yeah, it does. I remember I was on a business trip to North Carolina, probably about a year and a half ago. And I was wearing some Air Maxes with an Omega.
Yeah.
And I walked into the Hertz rental area. And, you know how much of a nightmare it is to rent a car.
Yeah.
This ended up being like the best experience ever, though, because when I walked in, he noticed my Air Maxes.
Yeah.
And he complimented me on them.
Yeah.
And I got up to the desk and we started talking. We were talking about sneakers. And then he finally pulls up my reservation. He looks at the reservation. He looks up at me. He's like, "Man, I'm going to give you an upgrade."
Nice.
I was like, "Dude, just because I thought to wear some sneakers today."
Right.
That actually, and I was wearing my blazer. I was wearing my, navy blue, slacks. I was wearing a white shirt. Right. So I was literally ready to go to visit with my customer in a very professional environment, but I was dressed in a way that was unique. I took a little bit of a risk, but I was able to stand out, and I accessorized appropriately and respectfully, just as you said, and it gave me a free upgrade. And when I got to that actual meeting with my customer, I instantly had a cool story to break the ice, talk a little bit about something other than the singular purpose of why I was there, which was to talk business.
Yeah. And it's also great to be able to be around like-minded folks, right? Who shares the passion that you share, right? I could talk days, just, shoes and watches and cars and EDCs, that type of stuff, right? Because it's a passion of mine. And it's really good to find like-minded people. One of the piece I would leave folks is, dress and accessorize within your means, right? Don't go nuts. If you could only afford a certain amount, just stick within that, as opposed to, overextend yourself. I've seen a lot of folks who do that overextend themselves, who buys timepieces that they think they could flip, that type of stuff. It's like, hey, it depends on the market, right? It's not instantaneous. These type of rewards. So, I would say, if you're going to accessorize, are you buying stuff because you want to flip it, or are you buying stuff because you want to wear it? Because there's two different things, right? I buy stuff to wear, because my timepieces loses value sometimes, but I still enjoy wearing it, right? Like say some Grand Seikos, right? Grand Seikos don't typically hold their values too well unless they're limited. Okay.
Sure.
But I love their fucking dials. Their dials are so fucking awesome, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And they're trending up market, from pricing perspective.
Sure.
But, $5-6 grand to get a nice dial, right? Why not?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to spend, 12-15 grand for Daytona because it says Crown, because it's got a crown on it, right? It's just not within my my spending habits.
Right. Yeah, Grand Seiko is super underrated, man. Yeah, they do have great dials.
We do, but my thing is over 10 grand. To be honest with you, I don't think they're worth over 10 grand.
No, they're not. No, I certainly would not pay more than that. But yeah, I'm aligned with you. So we've talked a lot about business style. Let's talk about date night, right? When you go out on a date night, what is your style on a date night? Can you wear Jordans on a date night? How are you thinking about that?
Okay, so obviously it depends on where I go, right? If it's fancy dinner, if it's just a night out, but I will always, when I'm going out, I'll always wear Jordans, J4s, right? All
right.
Mostly the craft ones, because I'll compare them with just about everything. They're gray, so I compare them with just about everything.
Right.
Date nights, usually it's could be a button down shirt, sweater, right? Pair of slacks or pair of nice jeans, and a pair of J's.
Yep.
And then like an overcoat.
J4s, or do you mix it up with 1s or 3s?
Yep, I mix it up with 1s. I don't like 3s. That's not true. I have a pair of 3s.
Okay. All right.
And then but they're mostly 4s.
Yeah. Okay. I've actually, I think 1s are great on date nights, for sure. One of my favorite silhouettes is a 3. In fact, I actually find 3s are very easy to style on a business trip.
Yeah.
So I'll wear 3s and 1s pretty consistently on business trips.
Okay.
And, like on a date night, I think like 1s, 3s, 4s, Yeezys. I mean, you could kind of do, depending on like where you're going, right? You've just got so many options. But like the point is, and back to what you had mentioned earlier, it's like when you're going out on that date night, like stand out, take a little bit of a risk, don't blend in, and accessorize appropriately, right? I think that's great advice, and you can apply that to date night, to the business trip, or when you're going out for like an event, right?
But be confident, right? Whatever you put on, be confident.
Right. Totally. And I think what you wear allows you to maybe be a little bit more confident.
It should, but I've seen folks who wears these fucking nice outfits, but they're just, I'm not telling you to be peacock. I'm not telling you, but be confident of what you wear, right? Own it. Own the look. Have to be, it might be out there. It might get people to talk negatively about you, right?
Right.
But who the fuck cares? At least if you're owning it, you're good to go. Have that confidence. Fuck everybody else.
Right. Absolutely. Well, hey man, let's end on that. Really like strong advice for episode 1 of Time Meets Style. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Answering questions, helping the audience kind of get a sense of who you are, your style, and some good culturally relevant talk as well, man. I appreciate JLAM. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure, E.
All right, buddy. Take care. See ya.
Later.
Where time meets style.